Less than 100 days from the election, no major event can spare being seen through the campaign lens. So in the wake of the prisoner exchange, the White House touted Vice President Harris's role, and former President Trump criticized the Biden team for giving away too much. CBS News chief election and campaign correspondent Robert Costa joins me for more. Bob, the White House was anxious to highlight the role Vice President Harris played in this prisoner exchange. What do you make of the role she played, and also that strong effort to make sure reporters knew all about it?
It's unsurprising, John, and good to be with you. You have seen inside the Biden White House since 2021, late 2021, throughout 2022, a reassertion of Vice President Harris and her role in policymaking, especially on foreign policy. She's been engaged with President Biden from day one of the crisis and war in Ukraine, part of these discussions across the board. This is a president who is so familiar with foreign policy, going back to his days as chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, has such a bond with Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State. It reminds me of Nixon in the sense of President Nixon really having that cadre of advisors on foreign policy. President Biden has his own, but you see him bringing in Harris again and again to have the vice president not only have a seat at the table, but have anecdotes and experience that she can point to for a moment like this when she is now being asked to potentially serve as president.
I want to ask you about the continuing response to the former president's remarks, former President Trump, at the National Association of Black Journalists, where he mischaracterized Vice President Harris's racial identity. What is your, and just generally stirred the pot on the race issue, what does your reporting tell you about, A, how Republicans are responding to that for their nominee, and what Trump might have been up to with those remarks?
He did more than stir the pot. He toppled the pot, and the pot has spilled all over the American political scene. But when I've spoken today to people close to former President Trump, it's clear to me as a reporter that this is a crossroads on race and identity in presidential campaign politics. That's nothing new. Trump, his original act to reemerge as a person who could be seen as a presidential contender was the birther issue back in 2011, 2012. Questioning President Obama, his love of country, his credentials. And so the racial charge to Trump's political ascent has always been there. It remains part of the conversation. And unlike so many Republicans on Capitol Hill today who keep saying we'd prefer to speak about policy when it comes to Vice President Harris, you have Trump in public, not behind the scenes, in public saying, no, I want to talk about race. I want to talk about her heritage as someone who has an Indian mother who is now deceased, a father who is Jamaican, who went to a historically black college, part of a very well-known black sorority. All of these factors Trump wants to confront and twist in his own way for political reasons, based on what I'm told by people close to him, that he welcomes the discussion of race rather than wavers when it comes up.
Finally, we are not that far from the vice presidential decision from Harris. This period gets hot and heavy on speculation. There is now talk about some of the governors that have been on the lists canceling their weekend plans. Help us think with wisdom, Bob, about how we should think about this vice presidential stage, or are we at the stage where it's wake me when there's a name?
What a nice thing to tell any party organizer this weekend. I'm sorry, I'm not available. I might be the running mate. It's a shame I can't make that barbecue. But I need to go through that final vetting. You have so many Democrats now having these discussions with the Harris campaign. You hear about these virtual discussions with the vetting team. And for the Harris campaign, it's really a test for them. This is a compressed political period to pick a running mate. They have to not only test out behind the scenes how it's going to play out with different constituencies inside the Democratic Party, but are they really getting the full legal vet of all of these people on their personal conduct, their finances, because investigative reporters will be on top of whoever is picked in the coming days. At this point, I hear it is going to likely be a governor, but Senator Mark Kelly and others are certainly near or at the top of the list. And it's not just about political balance, I'm told by someone close to the vice president. It's about that personal chemistry. She wants a governing partner. Unlike so many who serve in the presidency or could serve in the presidency, she knows what it's like, a witness to power in that #2 role in the government.
Right. Excellent point. Robert Costa in Washington. Thank you very much, Bob.
Thanks, John.